Let me show you something worth noticing. You're making more money than your parents ever did, and you still feel behind. I've spent decades watching people earn six figures and live like they're one mistake away from collapse. Not because they're careless, because they mistook income for wealth. There's a specific kind of poverty that only shows up after success. It doesn't announce itself. It hides behind nice things and busy calendars. You look successful. Your bank account refills every 2 weeks. But something feels wrong, and you can't name it. I learned this from watching someone close to me earn $180,000 a year and panic over a $3,000 expense. The money came in, the money left, and in between there was only movement, no accumulation. That's the invisible leak. It's not spending on stupid things, it's spending on expected things. The loan payment that feels permanent. The subscription you forgot you doubled. The lifestyle you adopted. The month you got promoted and never revisited. High earners feel poor because they inflated their life at the same rate they inflated their income. And inflation, once accepted, becomes invisible. I've seen people make $30,000 and save $5,000. I've seen people make $120,000 and save nothing. The difference wasn't intelligence, it was permission. The first group never gave themselves permission to spend everything. The second group gave themselves permission the moment the raise hit. Here's what I've noticed after watching this pattern repeat for years. The people who feel poorest are the ones whose expenses rose to meet their income, then kept rising. Because once your baseline shifts, it never shifts back on its own. You don't wake up one day and decide your car is too nice. You don't suddenly downgrade your apartment because you can. You just keep going, assuming the income will always be there and the gap will close later. But later never comes, because the gap isn't between what you earn and what you need. It's between what you earn and what you've taught yourself to expect. I used to think the problem was financial literacy, that people just didn't understand compounding or tax efficiency or asset allocation. But I've watched financially literate people make the same mistake. They understood the math. They didn't understand themselves. There's a behavior I've seen destroy more wealth than any market crash. The belief that earning more solves the feeling of being behind. It doesn't. Because if your expenses are elastic, your income is irrelevant. You'll earn $50,000 and feel stretched. Then $80,000 and feel stretched. Then $150,000 and feel exactly the same, just with better furniture. The feeling doesn't come from the number. It comes from the gap between inflow and outflow. And if both grow together, the gap stays the same forever. I've watched people spend decades in that trap. They're not failing. They're just running on a treadmill that speeds up every time they do. Here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. The invisible leak isn't a mistake you're making. It's a deal you accepted. You accepted that a raise means a nicer life. That success means visibility. That earning more means you've earned the right to spend more. And that deal feels so reasonable, you never question it. But I've seen what happens when someone breaks it. I watched someone keep their $60,000 lifestyle while their income climbed to $140,000. For 5 years, they just let the gap widen. They didn't track every dollar. They didn't deny themselves. They just refused to let their spending creep up automatically. After 5 years, They had $320,000 saved, not from sacrifice, from silence. Because the quietest form of wealth building is just not participating in the inflation of your own life. Most people can't do that, not because it's hard, because it's invisible. There's no reward for not buying something. No one congratulates you for keeping the same car. You don't feel rich when you're sitting in the same apartment you had 3 years ago. Even though you're saving $40,000 a year now, you just feel the same. And that sameness makes people panic. Because if success doesn't look different, did it even happen? I've noticed the people who build wealth aren't the ones who feel successful early. They're the ones who can tolerate looking unchanged while something enormous happens beneath the surface. They let time do the work. Everyone else interrupts it. The invisible leak isn't dramatic. It's a $90 dinner that used to be $40. It's a car payment that feels normal because everyone has one. It's the assumption that your income is supposed to fund your life exactly, with nothing left over, and that assumption is so widespread you don't even notice it's a choice. But it is. I've watched people make half as much and feel twice as secure because they made a different choice early. They decided that income and lifestyle didn't have to move together, that earning more meant building a gap, not closing one. And once that gap exists, everything changes. Because the gap is where wealth lives, not in what you earn, in what you don't spend, and then, slowly, in what that space becomes. I used to think high earners felt poor because they didn't earn enough. Now I think they feel poor because they never let themselves feel rich. They just kept moving the line. The moment they could afford something, it stopped feeling like enough. The moment the income arrived, the next expense was already waiting. And that cycle doesn't end when you earn more. It ends when you stop agreeing to it. I can't tell you what that looks like for you. I can only tell you what I've seen. The people who stopped feeling behind weren't the ones who earned the most. They were the ones who stopped spending like they had something to prove. You're making more than your parents ever did. Maybe it's time to ask why it still doesn't feel like enough. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next.